Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojo Baka. To our very first story, Speaker of Parliament Alban Gbagban says he will lock the doors of the Chamber of Parliament at 10 a.m. from next year because of late start of sittings due to lateness from MPs. Addressing members in Parliament, the Speaker argued that it is not right that he has to come and wait for MPs. Alban Gbagban says if MPs do not want him to enforce this new decision, then they must agree to start sittings at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m.
You can see that we're having challenges with early attendance. Now, if it is the pleasure of members to always start at 10, then we'll have to put additional measures in place. You all know that the chief doesn't go to sit to wait for his subjects. Nowhere in any parliament in the world will the speaker always go and sit and wait for members of parliament to come in. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. So please, from the first meeting of the fourth session of the fourth parliament, the eighth parliament of the Fourth Republic, at 10 a.m., we should say 10 in the phone, the doors will be locked. It will take some time before the doors are opened. Not that it won't be opened, but it will take some time. If we are not able to comply with it, then please, let's all agree that we will always start sitting in the afternoon from 2 or 4. The committees will have the meetings in the morning. Reports will be ready for us to consider in the afternoon. And then by the time we adjourn, at 8 p.m., the traffic situation might be improved. So the two caucuses, either you have joint caucuses meeting or at your own level, you discuss these things and come back with proposals. If not, these are the measures that I want to put in place, which will take effect from next meeting.
More from Parliament. MP for Domkwabenya Sarah Adwoa Sarfo is urging Parliament to speedily pass the Affirmative Action Bill due to its major significance. Now, the bill, which seeks to promote women's participation and remove the historical low representation of women in all policy-making spaces, has become a conditionality in Ghana's deal with the International Monetary Fund. The former gender minister says while Parliament must pass the bill expeditiously, it must do a thorough job so the law can stand the test of time.
I see here listed the Affirmative Action Bill, and on page 14 again is listed for consideration. This on page 10 it's for second reading, and on page 14 it's for consideration. Mr. Speaker, you would agree with me that the Affirmative Action Bill is a very important bill that has been coming in and out of this House. And I strongly believe that as women, we are very much interested in this bill. The issue I have with the listings on the business statement is the timing where we find these bills being considered. Budget statement has been presented by the Finance Minister. We are done with the debate and consideration of the policy, but we're going to go into committees and start discussing and dissecting the estimates. I am a bit worried that around the same time we have such an important bill. Mr. Speaker, I know you've been a strong advocate and a promoter of this bill as well. So I just want to draw the majority leader's attention to the fact that it's very important. We want to see it passed, but we want to see it go through the proper considerations with the numbers that we need in the House so that at the end of the day, it will be a collective bill that is being considered and taken through the various stages of considerations in this House.
Away from Parliament, the Honorary Vice President of Imani Africa, Bryce Simmons, has challenged the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Samuel Abujinapo, to substantiate his claim that the 10% lithium royalties rate signed by Ghana is the best globally. Bryce Simmons emphasized that there have been times in Ghana's history when the government had more than 50% stake participation, now in contrast to the current 19% state participation in the agreement with Barari DV Ghana Limited.
The minister, makes claims that are just simply not true, and with all due respect. He makes claims that this is the best deal ever, and he suggests that the fiscal terms are the most generous. And that is debatable in the sense that if you think about the dynamics that are confronting us, the fiscal terms that have been presented in the agreement that we are all aware of. Yes, the 10% seems high because in recent times we've been signing agreements that some argue have shortchanged us, and the 13% free carry interest is interesting. But the truth of the matter is that you take the whole historic span of our mining industry in this country, those terms are not that generous, because we can say that in the 70s, Ghana automatically had a 55% participation rate. You couldn't do mining in Ghana unless the state owned 55%. So are we comparing our current fiscal yield on lithium to that era, or we are having an arbitrary period of, say, from 1990 onwards? So what are we doing? So in short, there have been periods in our country when we had way more. Whether or not that was a good thing, it's another debate, because the argument was that by the end of the 1980s, we declined from 33 gold mines to about 4 gold mines, because some argued that the state was too dominant and private investment was not coming in. So private technology, private management capacity, etc., had been shut out. That is a separate argument. But to argue that this is the best in terms of the generosity of the terms is just not true, because we have a history in this country where in the 70s, the Champion government said 55% of all minerals belong to the state. How is your 13%, or even if you increase it to 19%, or even if you do go further to 29%, as the minister is saying might be the case, how does that compare?
Well, he's urging Parliament to scrutinize the deal, describing the agreement as too simplistic, especially given the uncertainties in the demand for lithium.
Given the uncertainties, our strongest argument is that the government needs to approach this from a real options point of view. What that simply means is that instead of this very simple agreement that they've done, in some cases there's a benefit of simplicity. But in this case, we don't think so. We think there has to be more options in the agreement in some of the respects. We've talked already about royalty. When the operating margin changes, we think the royalty should be variable. We think even in the case of equity, the way that they should exercise the equity is not the way they've done it now, which is they've done it in a two-pronged manner. For the government, it's a fixed kind of thing, and we say in the future we may negotiate for more. For MIF, which is the Sovereign Wealth Fund, they've allowed them to use warrants, which is a kind of option. So what it means is that they have the right but not the obligation to buy more if the price improves. But there are other options that we can use, and why not use it for the state too? Because MIF, given the fact that they can, easily exit their position, given the fact that they are a sovereign wealth fund, as opposed to the state, where we are a lot more, the regimen is much more stricter. We are not too happy that the state is not using options, not using some of the warrants. So not just warrants to exercise when the strike price is at a certain level. We want warrants that do other things as well. And we think that the agreement is too simplistic, given the uncertainties in lithium. If you're doing gold, we wouldn't have a problem. But lithium, a lot of crazy things are going on. For one thing, there is a lot of aggressive push. There's a massive and aggressive push to look for alternatives to lithium-based batteries. Laboratories all over the world, some of them funded to the tune of billions of dollars, are experimenting with all manner of battery technologies. In a time may come when lithium-ion batteries are not the big deal in electric vehicles possible. We don't know that. There's a recycling boom where after you use the electric battery, remember that the batteries for NMC, for instance, just 4 years. After 4 years, the charging ratio drops to as low as 20%, and people just simply change it. So when you throw away the battery, nowadays people are recycling the lithium, and that boom is really increasing. a time may come when we are getting more lithium from the discarded batteries that we are mining afresh. And we don't know yet. All of those things, plus, of course, the thing that everybody's talking about, the massive crash in prices. Prices have dropped from a high of about $81,000 a ton for lithium carbonate and hydroxide to something like $16,500 this month. So that's a massive drop in value. So we don't really know what is happening with this lithium thing. That therefore requires that we're very careful in the way we structure the agreement to take into account the uncertainty.
Let's now talk politics, because General Secretary of the People's National Convention, PNC, Janet Nabla, says unless the country accepts that corruption permeates the entire Ghanaian society, the fight won't be won. Speaking to Joy News after a National Executive Committee meeting of the party, the PNC chief scribe argued that the pretense that only politicians are corrupt is the reason why corruption is still so endemic in the country.
Because politicians want to win power, they will lie about how they should fight corruption. To fight corruption, a political party, politicians are less than 1% of Ghana's population and cannot be the cause of corruption in Ghana. It is the Ghanaian who is corrupt. Ghanaians are corrupt. So for us to be able to eradicate corruption out of our fibers, then we have to be truthful. Our religious bodies are aware that their congregants are corrupt. You go into the mosque, they know that their members are corrupt. You go into schools, teachers are not teaching children how to morally, to hold moral values dear. They are not teaching those things. At the end of the day, the person grows up to become a corrupt person, and then is the Ghanaian that they pick as a minister who becomes corrupt, or as an MP and those things. So when you say the minister is corrupt, did the minister fall from the skies to become a corrupt person? No, he was first a Ghanaian. So for us to be able to eradicate corruption out of this Ghana, politicians who think that they can write on by lying to these Ghanaians to be able to vote for them must be truthful. Any politician in election 2024 who will not call corruption, tag Ghanaian to corruption, and try to tag a particular group of people is not the man that Ghanaians should be voting for. We should have politicians who will come out to tell us that they will let our schools, our parents is even part of it. Because when you have a child and you don't teach the child about moral values, the child will grow up to end up being corrupt. So all these institutions are supposed to be strengthened. Our teachers must be encouraged to be able to teach children to abhor corruption.
Nabla says the party remains resolute in its quest to capture political power in the 2024 elections, as the party believes it is the only political party with the capacity to break the duopoly of the NDC and the NPP.
We think that the PNC is the only political party in Ghana that can be able to bring out solutions for Ghanaians. If you look at the governance of Ghana, it has always been the NPP and the NDC. These are the two political parties that are in parliament. I've told people, and I'm saying it again, there is no way you can go and vote for NPP or NDC and say you want change. Because the two political parties now are those that are ruling this country. In fact, they are in parliament, they are in charge of our organizations, our institutions. They monitor everything. So if things are not working well, it is as a result of the NPP and the NDC. So it will pain me that a Ghanaian will think that maybe any of them is in opposition. They are not in opposition. The only political party that is in opposition is the People's National Convention. We are in opposition. Even in opposition, we come out with our policies so that Ghanaians can to help salvage this country. We have a lot of people who say that they don't want to bring their policies out so that others will steal them. If PNC, we did not bring the policy of national health insurance, will Ghanaians now be enjoying? If we say that we will keep quiet until we come to power, we won't come out with policies. Ministry of Women and Children Affairs, now Ministry of Gender. We wouldn't have been having that ministry. Zongo communities were those who first said we want to create Ministry of Women and Zongo communities. Now we have a Ministry of Zongo or something communities. And then we talk about Get Fund, we talk about school feeding and the rest. So the PNC is a political party that is not selfish. We are not selfish in our policies.
From one political party to the other, Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Esidu Nketia, says his party is not against improving local production, but added the restriction on importation is not the way to go.
For me, any way of ensuring that we eat what we produce and produce what we eat is a good policy.
Definitely.
Because when you are trading with others, your food, your everything is in the hands of other people outside your control. Mm-hmm. You cannot claim to be economically independent.
Yeah.
There could be crisis between you and the supply of your food.
And that could spell doom.
And then you'll be in trouble. So there is every good thing to say about self-sufficiency, I think a certain minimum level of self-sufficiency in every economy.
Yeah.
So any policy that will boost local production and limit exports is potentially a good policy. How you go about it is my issue.
Okay.
So if I can get up one morning and see that Ghana is not importing poultry at all,
okay,
or Ghana is not importing rice at all, and there is no shortage of rice in the system, I'll be happy. Or there is no poultry in the system, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But you can't achieve these things artificially. There is a way to go about it that will deliver policy outcomes that are even worse than the current state. So my focus really has to do with the approach. The use of import licenses is a potentially dangerous tool to seek to achieve the results of reducing imports and all that. Import licensing itself is not a good tool at all, which I will support anywhere.
This is still JoyNews Prime. With me, Pius Kojo Baka. We are taking a breather. We'll be right back with more. Back to JoyNews Prime. The Northern Electricity Distribution Company has reconnected power supply to Akromankrom after the community experienced 2 weeks of total blackout after some unidentified members of the community tampered with the transformer in the area. Techiman Area Manager for NEDCO, John Tayari, who was speaking at a meeting with opinion leaders from the community, admonished power users to desist from tampering with faulty power lines to save lives and properties. Anna Sabit reports.
The Akruma community in the Kintampo South district were taken off the national grid after some unidentified members of the community embarked on activities that are capable of damaging NEDCO's transformers and transmission lines. Tishman Area Manager for the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, John Tyree, says the activities of the people, beyond causing damage to the transmission lines, also pose as a danger to the lives of the people of the community.
We got a complaint that there was a light off in Akromakrom. Our team put themselves together to get to Akromakrom, only to realize that they had gotten an electrician to fuse the transformer back. And the transformer fuses, they use cable to just tie them in a manner that it will be difficult for them to, blow in case of any eventuality. So we detected that that was dangerous to the health of the transformer and then even for the people of the community.
NEDCO's decision to disconnect power to the community is to, amongst other things, make the community provide the persons involved as well as prevent future occurrences. Mr. John Tyree admonished the people to avoid tampering with transmission lines and report to NEDCO for immediate actions to be taken.
We took away the fuses and asked that the community should get the person who fused the transformer before we could restore supply. So the fact that the fuse is gone off doesn't mean you should just go and fuse it back. So when the goal of communities should have the patience, get back to us and let us do our work and do it professionally. That is safer.
The people of the community, through the district chief executive, reported to the PURC, whose intervention called for a meeting between NEDCO and the opinion leaders of the community. District Chief Executive for Kintampo South, Opokunyame, promised to engage the people of the district on the hazards associated with tampering with transmission lines of NEDCO.
We learn from our mistakes. So what has happened, we must take a clue from it. We must learn some lesson from what has happened at Akruma. So I'll add it to my message. Whenever I engage the communities, I will just advise them on this particular issue, how they should protect VRA properties, especially when it comes to power outages, when the power goes off.
Regional Manager of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Patrick Entry, whose mediation called for a meeting between NEDCO and the community, says there is a need for an intensive education on the consequences of such actions that lead to damaging properties belonging to utility companies.
I think education and community engagement must be stepped up a bit. It must be intensified. I think with the assumption that people know what they are supposed to do with regards to electricity and power, we might get it wrong. So we need to engage the community a lot. We need to engage community leaders, of course, on the consequence of some of these actions. So I think that there's more room for improvement. We shall always make sure that our major stakeholders also are engaged at every point in time to make sure that some of these issues become a thing of the past.
The community, after signing a bond of good behavior, promised to abide by the content of the bond and prompt NEDCO whenever they have issues with their electricity lines. Anna Sabit, Joy News, Tichiman.
Welcome to the business side of the news. Now, there is a looming threat to Ghana's food and nutrition security attributable to the country's fast depleting soil health. Contemporary farming practices, including inorganic fertilizer application, tillage, and the pressing impacts of climate change, continue to threaten biodiversity in soils, affecting soil fertility. This week on Food Chain, Emmanuel Bright Kweku interacts with experts who are advocating the uptake of primitive agricultural practices that can boost agricultural production and restore the health of Ghana's soil.
Several research conducted by soil experts on the quality of Ghana's soil reveal nearly 40% of the country's soil is degrading. Owing to the higher demand of farm produce against the growing human population, application of inorganic fertilizer became the common practice for a bumper and quicker harvest. But experts say revolutionizing the sector through synthetic farming techniques has rather contributed to depleting soil fertility. Many farmers across the country are recording lower yields.
When you grow your crops, maybe at the time that it's supposed to rain, the rain needs to be a minimum. You get a much rain.
Judith Daite is a maize, pepper and okra farmer in the Volta region.
I used to plow half an acre or 1 acre. Then you get like the dry pepper. For the pepper, you get like the number 5 sack. You get like 6 or 8. But now, even if I plow 1.5 acre, I don't get up to 5.
The consequential impact on profits made locally is pushing farmers to export their produce.
We don't sell here again because of the money, so we took it, we export it to Togo.
Reports suggest 2023 is on track to become the hottest year since global records began 2 centuries ago. Already, the impact of the changing temperature is negatively affecting the horticultural sector, especially in the northern parts of the country, which experience intense sunshine. Professor Harrison Dapa is a crop scientist.
Climate change is affecting most of our horticultural crops. In fact, recently, when we looked at the mango sector, for example, we've seen that there has been increase in the mango weevil and other pest disease on the mangoes, which has affected the export potential of the mangoes, and others. Fields are actually flooded and others.
With dwindling farming production capacity threatening Ghana's food security, nutrition security,